See if that's the direction that they look in. For now, though, coming up on the final bans of Phase 2 for Zoomers, they do well to take that Treant Protector out of the pool.
Mhm.
Gardic obviously loves it. We talk about it every time he gets the chance to play it. And especially against a lone druid, if you can lock him down in that overgrowth, then you have a free path to potentially ignore the bear, go straight in onto the druid himself. So not really a look for Zoomers want to give to their opponents. Meanwhile, on the other side, Hokori shifting away from the carries. They'll take out the Brewmaster. That's another hero that I feel has been really getting more and more situations in which it starts to feel pretty fantastic to pick up.
Yeah, and then they go for the Ogre. So there's your stable five. Also, a little bit of a deny pick here. And of course, Ogre, a wildly popular hero with those South American teams for a very good reason. There's just not much to stop him in the laning phase. And I think in the bans that Hikori have set themselves up, really covered the Timbersaw here. There's still the Monkey King. There's still the Ursa. We could certainly see four Zoomers try to swing those less farm-heavy heroes in Costa Bile's hands. But that's also where I really like the Brewmaster pick here because they've basically removed every good or feels nice Spirit Vessel hero in the game. It's why they pair it with the Weaver because suddenly there isn't a 4 position who can just immediately turn around for that item. I think any hero they do pick up for 4 Zoomers here is going to have to maybe look back for it or force out of their item progression, which just feels a little bit awkward. And I think that's where 4 Zoomers have a very difficult question to answer. But Bloodseeker, we'll have to see who actually
Now,
plays that. But yeah, that is an interesting. And then Disruptor. So they are playing the combo game here. But Bloodseeker as an offlaner, they're going to keep us guessing, I think, lane wise, what's going on here. But this is the age-old lane. Rubik Bloodseeker has always felt very nice. You just toss him back into the Blood Red. It pretty much always connects. But that's also your, I want to say, soft counter versus the Timbersaw. Just rupture him up. He can't do anything in the fight. That's a very different direction that Forest Zoomers have going for. This is the most different offlaner I think we've seen Moo play thus far.
yeah, I mean, Mu plays a lot of heroes, but they all tend to kind of fulfill similar purposes at the end of the day, whereas this Bloodseeker's just very, very different. And that is assuming that it is going to be Mu on that hero. The last time we saw the Bloodseeker, I believe it was Pakaz playing it
Mhm.
in that position 1 role, so that is still a possibility for 4 Zoomers. Of course, Pakaz needed some time to build himself up on that Bloodseeker, but once he did, it was pretty terrifying. So 4 Zoomers could still move things in that direction if they want, but if they are going to put the Bloodseeker at the 1, it's going to have to compete against a Naga Siren now coming out for Hokori.
Yeah, and really, now I'm scratching my head here. If Hikori going to ban out carries, what are they going to try and take away from Costa Bile if it is going to be a Moo Bloodseeker? And it almost feels like it should be just because you do have the Rubik Bloodseeker lane. You've got the easy combo. The lane's more or less already set up, and that's where there definitely could be hiding. And okay, cover their bases. If it was going to be a Bloodseeker carry, take out the Sand King right now. Sand King is the best offlaner when it comes to playing versus those illusion-based heroes because well, you just kill him first, right? There's no way to actually play with the illusion advantage. Aside from that, I could definitely see Hikori splitting the bans and then looking for another hero, but at the same time, don't really know what Costa Bile is going to want to play. I think that Morph Band that came in earlier really set himself up for a nice position here. They're actually both going to single him out here on Moo, and that's a really fast pick. Okay, that's your
Mhm.
counter, I guess, but is it going to be enough? I've got questions because again, when they switch their draft up and they go for now this Bloodseeker carry and your offlane Darkseer, you're doing the dog champ thing where you break the rule. You don't have the Iron Shell on a melee 4. It's going to be a range 4 paired with the Darkseer, and it works. It just might not work as effectively as here's like the Tusk and the Nyx Assassin, which is a problem that they severely had in dog champ. Maybe 4 Zoomers can make it look a little bit nicer, but that's also where this Naga Siren is still a very big problem they have to deal with.
And now, you look at 4 Zoomers, Bloodseeker and Lone Druid can do some damage, right, at the 1 and the 2, respectively, but when it comes to team fights, when it comes to taking the entirety of Hokori's lineup, the Disruptor's going to have to hit, the Darkseer has to have a sort of vac wall play in there in the right spot in the right time, so you get the feeling a little bit here that 4 Zoomers basically kind of went in 2 different directions in their own draft and are now trying to bring them back together to really kind of synergize, and that's a pretty big question mark. Is the team fight enough? if you don't have the damage, or is the damage enough if you don't have the lockdown? And now that's a problem. That is a last pick Brood in the hands of a Brood expert in Vitali.
Yeah, and I guess that's why for Zoomers in their last few bans there, they ban out offlaners, saying that this Timbersaw could very likely just be going mid and just drawing the lane versus Gunner. And I even think Timbersaw can play up on that hero and look for the kill, especially once he hits level 6. And Hokori are actually taking their time here when it comes to
Hmm.
locking in, which is also making me wonder, for Stilicore Weaver, that's a dead ringer. Gardic Ogre, that's a dead ringer, but that's where the hesitation here on who actually wants to lock in on this hero. There's no way we see an analog Broodmother. I
No.
refuse to believe it, but it's really comes down to where they end up laning, and yeah,
There
they
it
will
is.
finally slot in. But that's where we've seen what this Broodmother can actually do, and I'm very interested to see how it plays versus the Rupture, because I think when you remove Rupture from the Bloodseeker, it's perfect for Vitali to play in. You really are never going to lose your spiders to the Bloodright. You always have the Silken Bowl, which makes it impossible for the Bloodseeker to actually deal damage outside of his spells. It feels like this Broodmother pick is just going to completely counter out that melee hero in Costabile, and I think that's where we always see them go for the Broodmother whenever it's very easily it's so easy for them to counter the melee carries. There's just not much that you can do versus the blind until you get BKB, and well, once you have BKB, then you need to be so careful with how you use that BKB. And hey, for Force Zoomers, we haven't seen the LD lose yet, but that still proposes the question if Hokori have just a little bit too robust of a lineup where Force Zoomers, it feels like they could very easily be toppled over here.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that Bloodseeker and just how much of an impact he can have if the Broodmother gets right on him. As you said, the Rupture's a little bit less effective because the Brood can keep you right there in short range for the fight, and later on in the game, we see Vitali so often go for that Aghanim Scepter, so then you're going to have the snares to lock down your Bloodseekers, your Lone Druids, heroes that do tend to rely on their ability to sort of reposition and remaneuver in these fights. So in the short term, they may struggle in the lanes. In the long term, they may struggle in the fights. Now even more pressure could potentially be applied to the likes of the Darkseer and the Disruptor.
Yeah, and hey, if there's one thing to be said about Force Zoomers lineup, it's pretty cool. They've got a lot of combo play with the Rupture. They've got the Roar, they've got the Glimpse, they've got the Vacuum. We could definitely see some crazy combination plays coming out from them, but that's also where you wonder how well Yuma's going to be able to break it all up, because I feel like anytime that the Naga Siren is going to get ruptured in this game, we're just immediately going to see the Song of the Siren. We're going to see him walk away. And then it's all about the vision game. It's all about whether or not Husky gets that glimpse back on the Naga Siren TPing. And then maybe we see a huge swing in momentum. But that's where Hokori, I definitely feel like, are playing the patch a little bit here, where Force Zoomers definitely needed to dive deep into their hero pools to get this draft coming.
But that is maybe one of the benefits of having a deeper hero pool, is that you can get into situations like this where we're talking about it with Zoomers still very much having the opportunity to take this game. As Gunner, yeah, gonna have to recall the bear there, but that's not gonna matter. By the time the lane actually gets underway, he'll have that right back up.
Yeah, definitely not an issue for him, but it just doesn't mean we don't get to see that cheeky play that he always goes for. Teams have gotten smart about the LD stealing the bounty runes, but that's also where you only need to worry about one team picking the LD, so.
In the meantime, oh, looks like Hokori may be looking for a little bit of aggression here early. Both Gardic and Theolicor in their way down bot. They'll see Costabile here, and this vision from the ward lets them know the support isn't actually here yet. So yeah, here comes Theolicor. It's looking to be as obnoxious as possible, and your Bloodseeker says, no, I'm not getting involved in that. Might just TP to the tower at this point, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So Costabile gets into the lane just fine, but you do burn a little bit of those resources, and this Bloodseeker comes to lane with basically no regen. He has a stick, and that's it. So if Theolicor and Gardic, yeah, just start trying to annoy him, this is going to be a lot of damage that he can't immediately walk off.
No, it's very patient, and at the same time, Force Zoomers are also holding their heroes. They'll finally TP Husky towards bottom now, but after seeing that TP, Hokori for certain see blood in the water. They think that if we can somehow force Costabile up the wave, then we will certainly get our kill with these double slows, but that's also where I think after this pull from Gardic, we could see him very simply just TP to the top lane, but That's also where I think Yuma's completely fine right now. He's playing versus a Darkseer. Z-Freak is trying to cut the creep waves, and okay, finally Gardic will make his way over, but it's where you're going to have a very free Naga game. You never really do enough damage with the Ion Shells to put that Naga Siren under threat. It's where Z-Freak's going to need to right-click Yuma for it feels like minutes before you actually see any kill threat onto that Naga.
And the problem is, when Moo's going to want to push forward, he has to put the Ion Shell on himself, because as we mentioned, Z-Freak, as a ranged hero, doesn't want to get that close, but if Moo is charging in, Gardic is right there. He's on the Ogre, he eventually will have a point in the Fire Blast once he's past level 1, and then how much real damage are you going to be able to put onto that Naga?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a big problem, but that's also where you are going to get very farmed on this Darkseer. It is an automatic win game. Nobody really gets too denied here as much as Gardic and Yuma might try. It's just a little bit too much damage, but we'll have to see then how Z-Freak is freed up to rotate around, because he's got a pretty free time when it comes to leaving this lane.
In the meantime, take a quick look at that middle lane where Analog is kind of bullying on that bear a little bit here. Gunner does have to keep it back. He's got... Actually, he doesn't have the resummon, so he has to send the bear all the way back home and kind of lane up by himself. So Analog, well, not a bad start here. A little bit behind in terms of the last hit count, but you look at those denies, he's got 6 on the board, so he is feeling pretty good, and the reactive armor is really going to make it so that Gunner is never going to have a massive opportunity unless that bear maybe gets some big root plays in, but even then, you're sort of looking at a risky situation.
Yeah, and, well, speaking of the root, there it is, but it's also where Gunner just needs to do a really good job of just denying those water runes, keeping everything pretty basic, but that's also where once the Analog hits level 6, he's constantly going to be diving in onto that LD and just forcing his teammates around the map, which is a little bit crazy.
Time back up top, there was a little bit of an attempt there on to Gardic, but they don't commit fully for that one. Z-Freak holds his fire with the telekinesis. They're just trying to really get the Ogre pushed back as much as they can, which has kind of been the theme here across these first couple of minutes, ET. We're not seeing either squad really get all that aggressive. Even that tri-lane for Hokori really just gave it sort of one attempt on Costabile before breaking up. So slow going in the early stages, but everyone's getting some pretty fantastic farm out of it, so I don't think anyone's looking to break the status quo just yet.
It's going to be a little bit of a farm fest here. Everything changes once the Brood hits level 6, and that's also where in the Darkseer lane, they're splitting the levels 50-50. Z-Freak isn't going off and stacking because, well, Costabile can't really take the stacks, but that means that there is going to be a fairly high-level Rubik in the game, which always poses the concern of him just TPing and nuking you down with the Fade Bolt, which is honestly very scary. You never really get to see it, but whenever you underestimate the Rubik's damage, it can certainly catch you off guard, and that's also where I think it is going to be boring, but once we hit level 6, we could see some rotations. It's where there is kill threat, and specifically in the mid lane, it's where Analog is going to constantly be looking for those kills onto the LD.
He's just biding his time for now, getting those reactive armor stacks up, but, well, as you said, it's going to be kind of slow going, but on the other side of things for Gunner, well, you also don't have to be that worried. As you said, once Analog hits level 6, then maybe we're looking at a different situation here, but prior to that, the Timbersaw is not just going to run at you, and even if he does, Analog doesn't have a point in the chain, so he's not going to be able to maintain that chase long term, so they are just sort of chilling out for the time being, and keep an eye on some developments here, as there is going to be a TP down bot. Z-Freak's coming in, because Husky dangerously low there. They will get the glimpse onto Vitali, pulling the Broodmother back in. The telekinesis now comes into play as well, and Husky, well, he was the initial target. He's actually the one to get the kill. His first blood goes for Zoomer's way, and now they're eyeballing up the Olakor a little bit, but they used pretty much everything they had in that first fight. So the Weaver's going to be able to get away, but that is a big kill onto the Brood and a nice rotation in from your Rubik.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want, and of course, Olakor has been poking Husky this entire laning stage. It's really just been a trade between the Weaver and the Disruptor, but it's where get a little bit too low, you don't bring the Ogre Magi over as well, and it's also just very tight because with the push or with the Creep Wave pushing in top, you don't know where the Rubik is, and I think that's where Z-Freak has a very free time when it comes to hiding himself and showing up randomly on these side lanes. But that's also where I think Moo is definitely feeling lonesome right now.
Lonesome and now dead as Gartic and Yuma realize, hey, Z-Freak's down bot and he TP'd in. He's not coming back up top anytime soon. They make the move and they are able to take down that Darkseer. And did that require? Yeah, there is a point up in the ensnare now for Yuma to sort of make sure they were able to get in there and keep the damage on him.
Yeah, and at the same time, a nice little illusion rune that Garlic's been playing with, trying to block up these camps, make it a little bit more difficult for Z-Freak, but that's also where in the mid lane, Gunnar actually had to use his resummon, just a little bit too much damage eaten by the bear there, and I wonder what we're going to see from this mid wave, because Analog surely can push in the mid wave faster, he just has more creep clear, which forces Gunnar to play, again, a little bit more passively. It's where I think once Analog has enough time and is freed up to make rotations elsewhere, I feel like Moo needs to be so careful, because that's where the Timbersaw shows up in your lane, and then suddenly, well, your Darkseer's dead, and I think stopping Moo's game specifically is just going to free up so much jungle space for Yuma, and they're doing a good job presently of trying to take it away here, but I think that's where if Hokori decided to commit more resources, Four Zoomers might need to heavily back off here, but they found a pretty nice stack.
And they are going to be able to steal just about all of this away. Theolacor will come in to try to assist, and now Yuma is actually going to make the move as well. Moo's got to be careful. That ensnare could come into play onto him, but yeah, okay, he's just going to drop the wall into the vacuum. Yuma's in some trouble. Doesn't have a point up in the ult right now, so Telekinesis pulls him back in, and Four Zoomers get the kill. Theolacor, oh boy. He is standing next to the bear, still had the Ion Shell on him. Z-Freak now is going to get surged forward. He's looking for the fade. Not quite enough damage, but that illusion will get the job done. So Four Zoomers push into their opponent's jungle. They get some big kills there, taking down the Naga Siren, and well, you said Analog could maybe make some moves here to try and make moves like a little bit harder, but finding that kill is really going to put him in a solid spot. Although look at Analog, he wants the kill onto the bear. He's not going to be able to get it just yet, but he turns around for the whirling. That is going to be enough. 300 gold into his pocket, but now he has to get away. Husky needs the range. It's only a level 1 glimpse, though, so I don't think he's going to get it.
No, just barely. And then Costabile, yeah, shows up with the rupture.
Gartic will look to TP. There's the glimpse.
Nah. There you go. Free kill.
No. Costabile is able to get it, so that is a kill for Four Zoomers, but we really were looking for the Timbersaw there, not able to get the primary target, but at least they find something, and that's even more important for the Bloodseeker here, because Costabile really does need to maintain this spot at the top of the net worth. You're going up against a Naga Siren on the other side farm-wise, so every little bit that he can get is going to be so important for him.
Yeah, and really, the only reason he was in any position to get that rupture onto the Ogre is because, well, he's been forced to ditch bottom. Vitali is in full swing right now on the Broodmother. Have to see how fast his Orchid timing is, because it feels like that's always what Vitali goes for, but that's also where these supports need to be so careful. Nice D-ward from Husky, but this Broodmother is always going to be a thorn in your side, and unfortunately for Hokori, I do think the Radiant version is just a little bit better, just because you get to be a little bit closer towards that Roche pit, you get to play a little bit less of that split push game and a little bit more active, but with Dire Broodmother, you're certainly stuck in what feels like the empty lane for a little bit longer than you might want sometimes.
At least Vitali is going to be able to establish some sort of control in this area, that's for sure. And meanwhile, mid, Gunnar really just refusing to back off of this. This is normally where we see a lot of the offlaners sort of come into play to defend this tier 1, but Gunnar with the bear sort of fulfills that role here, just trying to keep aggression off of that tier 1 for as long as possible, although ET, it has taken a lot of damage, so if Hokori make the rotation mid, maybe find themselves a kill or two, then they might just be able to brute force it, but right now, they're eyeing up Moo. They want to try and jump onto this Darkseer, but this is a pretty tanky Darkseer to get through. He's got the Vanguard, and now, okay, there's the Static Storm thrown down. Theolacor is going to get hit up by the Rupture, and well, I think his TP was going to complete, but he gets glimpsed back in anyway. Costabile able to find another kill, but once again, you would very much like to punish the cores on the Hokori side, and that's really not happening right now, but at least you're finding these kills, and now Analog, gotta be very careful. He is going to get run down under the tower. He'll Timber Chain away, though, in Z-Freak. Yeah, he already used the telekinesis.
Yep, it was a very scary situation there. Just didn't have any stacks just yet, and that's where Force Gamers can actually zone the Timbersaw away from the creep wave. He doesn't have an easy way to get it back, and well, now the cart's alive. They glyphed for that, but I think unfortunately the wave clear from the Timbersaw might just be a little bit too good. Not to mention, Analog just finished up that Hood of Defiance, so it's not like you're gonna really kill him with just the root damage coming in from the LD. You're gonna need the Rupture. You're gonna need the involvement from the Bloodseeker, but that's also where, with Four Zoomers splitting their attention, they're not getting the safe lane tower away from Hokori, and they're also not putting too much pressure on mid. So it feels a little bit awkward for them right now. It feels like they want this laning stage to continue, but they're not exactly able to translate any of these objectives. And I think Gunner might be forced to resummon, but he doesn't have it for 70 seconds.
Gotta be real careful with how he plays this one in Analog. He really is chasing after it. Don't know if he's actually going to be able to really make that happen, though, but you are putting more pressure on this middle lane. Tier 1 tower took a little bit more damage. Analog, though, is now going to get hit by the Rupture. The Telekinesis prevents him from getting away, and he might just straight up die here. He doesn't have the durability at the moment. Cristable, that is a very nice play. He lets that tower do maybe about half the work, dropping the Timbersaw low, then makes the move when Analog isn't able to just sort of just Timber Chain and eat the damage anyway.
Yeah, 100% an overextension from Analog, a mistake that really he can't afford to make because you do remove the defender of mid, so now Four Zoomers get to look for counterplay elsewhere, but that's also where Costabile is so crucial for the Four Zoomers lineup to actually operate. It's very difficult for them to find these kills unless he's able to just beat into them, and I think that's where the smoke is interesting from Four Zoomers. They're looking to maybe get some deep wards down here. I think this is more or less a warding smoke with Z-Freak just around in case he finds the Weaver and tries to get Shikuchi, but this is a little bit awkward. They're trying to kick out Vitaly, which is definitely important, but it also feels like it could be a little bit of a whiff here. Meanwhile, Gardic, that's a pretty nice nab, though.
Yeah. Your Ogre not going to be able to get himself out of that one. He is going to make him work for it, certainly, but they will eventually bring him down. So Gardic maybe just feeling a little uncomfortable with multiple heroes sort of making their way bot, looking for his teammates. So he's just able to get in there and make some sort of defensive play to keep Vitaly safe, and the Broodmother honestly is farming up quite nicely. That Orchid is coming along in terms of the progress at a solid rate, but they will lose a hero in the river. Yolakor cut out and taken down. Cristable 4-0 now. This Bloodseeker really is not missing out on any kills or any farming time for that matter either.
Yeah, and I saw that play. Yolakor, he was trying to run himself down and then get the big time lapse off, and of course Husky was already set up, but TP mid. Again, Analog
Static
overextended.
Storm. This is... You can't do that, man. I mean, he wants that tower, but you're a Timbersaw. You're not going to take it that quickly, and here's the cost. You get taken down. Once again, that defender is gone, and you're going to be the side losing your Tier 1 tower off the back of this. Four Zoomers really capitalizing on some early misplays from their opponents.
Yeah, just not pleased enough with playing in that side camp, farming the small instead, and this is where they're also looking for Gardic yet again, and if only Husky was a little bit closer, maybe they can make another attempt here, but it's where I think losing this mid tower, it's a definite loss. It's something that I think Hokori now need to be just ever so more careful about, because now their jungle is blown wide open. If Four Zoomers want to make another smoke, probably around another item timing from Costabile, they could very easily look for Yuma now. Just something they really didn't need to give up. I think now we might see them fight a little bit harder for this top tower, but it's also where Analog just needs to get mid. He's been spending so much time here, and well, Gardic, I think he's just going to fall again for free bottom.
Yeah, they glimpsed him back in after missing on the initial attempt. They will find the kill, but Yuma's coming in. Does he really want the fight, though? He's going to throw out one ensnare, get some damage onto Moo, but not looking for much more just yet. Not willing to make the full commitment. The problem is, Analog came over for this. He did not go for the tower. Instead opted to be there for his teammates. The creeps will at least still get it, so they don't miss out on too much there, but that's a lot of heroes to make their way over to that area for Hokori for there to not end up being a fight.
No, it's certainly just a little bit awkward, but hey, that's where you're still making space for Yuma. You're still farming up pretty quickly. It's still not the worst case scenario here, but that's also where I'm looking across the board for Four Zoomers. They're getting very useful items. They're getting very basic stuff. He's just getting second item BKB on Bloodseeker. Meanwhile, Philiacore getting caught up by the entire support gang down bottom, but yeah, that's a nice steal, but I think he's okay now, actually.
They're going to drop the wall down as well. I don't know about that one, especially with Vitaly now coming in. That's going to be a bit of a bummer for Mu. Using the ult, not getting much, but Yolakor able to get himself away, and now your Rubik has a time lapse for whatever purposes really he wants. He's not going to be able to throw it onto any teammates, but at least he could maybe just save himself from dying in one of these fights. But, well, at this point, check back in on Vitaly. How is that Orchid? I believe he is finishing it up here. Yeah, all the pieces coming out to him. So this may be the signal for a new wave of aggression out from that Hokori side. You're going to have him good to go. You're having the Timber Saw. Well, picking up a kill there. Taking down Costabile. Yuma, though, was hit by the Rupture and doesn't have a TP. Yuma, stop. Oh my god. Well, now he's in trouble. Glimpsed back into the Static Storm. He will be taken down. Just, honestly, I think that glimpse was happening no matter what. He might have just wanted to preserve as much health as possible, but ran himself too low. The Static finishes him off. Husky gets the kill, and now the Bear and Gunner kind of coming around on the backside, looking for the play onto Analog. There's going to be the root. The Fear comes in as well. Do they have the damage to take him down? Well, not initially, but a second root from the Bear is going to allow them to pick it up. So Costabile may have fallen there, but they get 2 core kills. The tier 1 tower in the top lane's gone. And 4 Zoomers are going to look to put a little bit more pressure, actually, here up top, as they are moving on to the tier 2 for all of 2 seconds, but able to hit it up a little bit.
Yeah, and it is very nice. They do need to be careful because, well, plays like this happen where suddenly your tier 2 bottom is just immediately pounded, and he's trying. He's going to get a few spiders. That's not bad at all, but I think that's where in the top lane, Husky just always does such a good job of placing the vision to actually get the glimpse. Even if the wards are fairly short-lived and surely Gardic is going to D-ward after he pushes the lane just a little bit further, it still feels quite nice from him. But that's also where this game is very awkward. It's very difficult for both sides to make plays. We all pretty much only see a team fight break out whenever the Rupture gets used, because that's the only spell that has enough control to really make anything happen. And ooh, Gardic should be cleaned up here. It's very tanky, but isn't going to matter.
Costabile gets in there again. Another kill for your Bloodseeker, up to 5-1 now, and he is he's closing in on his BKB. This is where the team fight prowess for 4 Zoomers may come into play a little bit more as... Oh, hold on a second. Gunner, very low in the jungle. They are able to take him down. Vitaly will reveal that Orchid, and that's exactly what you needed on the Hokori side. You may not have been able to take too many fights, but if Vitaly can find those solo picks with the Orchid in hand, he is going to be able to pull a little bit of momentum back his way, put some pressure onto the tier 2 now, but God, that Fade Bolt with all the Spiderlings just goes on forever, but it does buy a little bit of time. Reinforcements have arrived, so there could be a defense here, or maybe not. Mu doesn't want to stick around, using the Boots of Travel on the Darkseer to get himself up top. That, honestly, feels a little bit greedier than usual from Mu, but he's farming so well on this Darkseer that he's able to get away with it.
Yeah, and, well, Yuma's greeting them in his own jungle, just saying, hey, I'm going to take some mana. I'm going to be a little bit annoying here, because Yuma does have the Manta style with the Diffusal Blade to complete it, but I just wonder if it's enough. Both sides are really farming so much. All 6 cores are at about the same net worth, just maybe 1 or 2,000, but oh, Rupture, Vitaly gave himself away. That is in the dark, by the way. This is not a ward from them. That is a really tight Rupture from Costabile.
Gets the Rupture, gets the kill. The tower has 32 HP remaining. So Vitaly, he was really just laying it all out there to try and get that tower, something we saw from Analog earlier in the game for this mid-tier one. So, well, multiple players on that Hokori side sort of going a little bit too far, I think, for those towers. You can delay that, you know, a minute or two and then come back later. Instead, Vitaly gets picked off. Gardic able to grab the Arcane Rune, but immediately dies for it in that river. And 4 Zoomers are going to go after Roshan here. Armor reduction's not fantastic from them, but if they get enough time, they could still do this, and Hokori don't really have anyone, even on this side of the map, to try and contest it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's 15-3. I think as much as we can enjoy Hokori's lineup for what it is, there's just no one to start these fights. There's no way for them to actually get in here, and I think that's where maybe picking up the Timber Saw in the Weaver in the opener and then just not having a very active mid laner when they try to go for the, you know, last pick Broodmother to try and counter it out, it's so impossible for them to start fights. We are kind of just running towards a game where everybody's going to get farm, everybody's going to get these luxury items, and I think that's where you kind of got to give hats off to Four Zoomers. Everyone scales incredibly well, and of course, they're going for the little items along the way. No one's really greeting out aside from Move, but you're going to have Aghanim's Pretty Scepter pretty soon on the Rubik. You're going to have items like the Ags that Husky can build later on down the road. Gunnar has infinite space for growth, basically. He even just finished up a Mjolnir of his own. I really don't know what Hokori do in the meantime, though. It feels like they're going to adopt that same split push style that they had in the previous game, but man, this game is really hard to tell where it's going, because there really isn't a fight. It's just a constantly heroes getting pushed around and Costa Billy trying to rupture them.
And I feel like at this point, it's going to look a lot like Game 1, where they're just going to be waiting to see just how big Yuma can build himself up. Because if the Naga Siren keeps going, this is going to be a little bit like the PL situation that we saw before, where you can jump into the fight, you can drop down the song, really get yourself set up, and I think the most important thing at that point is once they go in, once they deploy that song, they need to have either killed off the big targets already or identify them to get the quick kills. If you can take out the likes of the Disruptor, then that Static Storm off the field means Four Zoomers are going to rely almost exclusively on just their pure damage output. So that's still going to be a play for them, but it's not coming anytime soon. Yuma is farming well, but we would still like to get one or two more items on him. In the meantime, though, Four Zoomers are just going to push the high ground. They throw a Rupture onto Gardic that is honestly not fantastic. Gardic's just going to wait that one out, and now Vitaly and Yuma have arrived. The Ulcore is going to come in as well, looking for that minus armor, and Four Zoomers still have to be careful. They may have the Aegis, but don't want to overextend here, as, okay, the Ulcore's going to get himself caught. Had the time-lapse, but he was silenced up by the Static Storm. The only problem is, now you're down Static Storm, you can't really afford to push the high ground again.
Yeah, that, and this is Gunnar's last spare. He did just resummon, so if he loses it, it doesn't really matter if you have Aegis, because this spare's got to run all the way back to base, and hopefully it doesn't die to any hero in the meantime. But at the very least, I think to a testament of Hokori, this is the first time that this LD has not taken a 20-minute racks in Four Zoomers games. You know, Hokori are doing a good job in that regard, but it's also where I think really we are going to be looking for those later timings. We are going to be seeing a game where everyone has items, which is still very scary to play into, especially with the elimination on the line. But I think that's also where Four Zoomers are certainly taking the slow road right now. They don't want to throw away anything, especially in the same fashion they did in Game 1, but that's also where items like Lotus Orb and Force Step, they need to be built up and coming out from those supports. I hate if they skip a few steps here as they try to get a kill on Analog bottom, and they should have this.
Fear's gonna wear off, another root comes in, and yeah, Analog just can't get away. That's... oof. That is some nice RNG out from the Four Zoomers side, and Analog's game has really sort of dropped off here. Is the Olacore, can he time this up perfectly? No, he just dies to the Rupture. That was a short enough glimpse where he takes the damage, and oh, Four Zoomers, two quick pickoffs there, and all of a sudden Hokori can't really afford to be on that side of the map anymore.
Yeah, what a strange game as Yuma finishes his heart. So he's got a heart, but aside from that, I think that's where Gunnar, he is still the only way they kill these buildings. That's where he's looking for, and he's actually building so many Wraith Bands right now. He's got 4 Wraith Bands in the stash, and well, it's about to be 25 minutes, so well, he's gonna be very strong, but definitely delaying up his Radiance timing, which he's always been going for in his games. But you know, funny to see 4 Wraith Bands fly out 25 minutes into the game, but surely it's worth.
I mean, yeah, you can't really argue against the value from the Wraith Bands. It's just a little bit strange to see as Corey, they got themselves a smoke. They run right into Costable, though, and he's not the one with the Aegis. They would love to get this kill, but there's going to be that BKB coming into play. Yuma not pulling the trigger on that Song of the Siren just yet as they continue to push forward. They get the snare onto the Disruptor, and now, well, now they can afford to do quite a lot more. Husky is relied upon pretty heavily to reposition these heroes. Four Zoomers, they still look like they want the fight. Analog, though, tried to get in on the back line. He is trying to run interference here, but Vitaly is so damn low. He's got to back away. He's not going to be able to get out as he will fall. Analog now, he's just going to get rooted up again. There's nothing this Timbersaw can do. The second he goes in, he's immediately handled and pushed back. And now, well, now the Song of the Siren is going to come out, but it's defensive more than anything else, and it's just going to be used to get Yuma back into the base. Hokori, well, they kind of thought that that was their fight. Instead, that kill onto Husky is the only one they pick up, and they're back on the defensive.
Yeah, it's where they thought that that was their moment because Costabile used his BKB. They thought that, well, we weren't going to need to be too worried going forward, especially with Analog not really getting left up there. But that's where the harass from the Broodmother is actually so important for them. And, well, unfortunately, you do lose your bear, so Gunner has to play just a little bit more careful when it comes to this high ground push now. But I'd hate to see them back off just because of that. But I think they might have to. Timers are still relatively short. It's not like those kills actually matter, even though it feels like they're at the gates of Hokori base. But that's where you also do wonder, why didn't Yuma song earlier? What's going on there? But I think now, yeah, Hokori want revenge. They are going to be fighting into a full BKB. They know there's only a single bear. That's something to maybe play around in case they want to go for the burst damage. But that's also where they still have this lockdown issue. It really is just Fire Blast and Ensnare, and somebody's got to help Yuma.
Oh my god, he's going to get hit by the Rupture. He can't move. He's just got to fight this out, and he can't do it. That rotation just took way too long, and now Analog, he just chained into the Static Storm. Vitaly, he can't join the fight. He just has to sit back and wait, and Hokori, they are just... They're not on the same page here, ET. That's such a long wraparound. Now they're going to be losing Gardic as well. This is just terrible. I mean, the supports don't last long at all. Vitaly can't get into the fight. Analog is the least tanky Timbersaw I think I've ever seen. The second he gets hit by one of those roots, he's just gone. Poor Zoomers, I mean, they may have just broken this one open. They're going to take the tier 2 mid. They could continue pushing onto the high ground at this point.
Yeah, and, well, you're Hokori, you know? You've got Glyph, you've got the Bloodlusted Tower. It's going to be a little bit of damage that maybe they need to respect on for Zoomers, but there's no real reason for them to back off here. But yeah, just very, very strange game from Hokori. It doesn't really feel like they do have a game plan in, okay? Silken Bullet lands, immediately gets Lotus Orb, then suddenly it's no longer a problem. And Vitaly's going for the Ag Shard, just maybe allowing it so that way you have to choose who you Lotus Orb in this game, but... Well, now if you're Hokori, let's see, is Roche kind to you, or will 4 Zoomers just get another free Aegis in 15 seconds? Because I honestly don't think Hokori are going to want to fight in the next 5 minutes, maybe not even the next 10 minutes, unless a huge mistake comes out from 4 Zoomers. But honestly, this is a huge problem they need to fix, and, well, 3, 2, 1, let's see what happens in the pit.
Nope. Minute 18 on that timer, so... Hokori are going to get a little bit of room to breathe here, a little bit of time to collect themselves, and collect themselves has to be the phrase here, ET, because these have just looked so strange with these fights, and specifically Analog, don't want to really get too harsh for him, but he has not been able to survive in these fights. 1-6-1. He did get the Kai Assange finished off recently, but I mean, what really can his play be? He's got a Lotus Orb, but a lot of the issue seems to be the root from that bear. If he gets hit up really once or twice, then he just gets completely taken out of engagements.
It's one of those games where you need a BKB on the Timber side. Well, there's your mid melee racks.
We'll try to hold. Scepter coming into play as well. Oh, Yuma. He just got glimpsed back.
And they know he's gone.
The Manta came out too early. Do they go in? Do they see the opportunity? They've got the boy, they've got the static. That was a little late from Husky, actually. So, whiff on the Static Storm means that 4 Zoomers will back away, but honestly, they got what they wanted. They pushed in. They took the melee racks. 4 heroes walk into that snare, so that's a little bit awkward, but it's not really anything Hokori can follow up on, and now that Roche, it is back up and running. Aegis and Shard both available, and 4 Zoomers, they want to take control, but Hokori are pushing forward at the right time. It's just a matter of, again, can they win this fight? Because if they push forward and lose, they're just going to be kind of SOL here, but they are going to try to push in. Mood dropped low, not taken down, though. He's able to just surge himself out. Stable, meanwhile, trying to keep the Weaver away from the fight over on the other side, and now that BKB comes into play as Analog's going to get taken down. Yuma pushing in. There's going to be your Song of the Siren, but with the BKB up on the Bloodseeker, he doesn't care. He'll drop the Rupture. The Naga Siren is not going to be able to do anything. He pushed into that fight without his TP up, so he couldn't leave. He was ruptured and stuck, and this, I don't know, Hokori have just been broken in this second game. I'm not sure what's up with them, but they look like a vastly different team than the one we saw in game 1.
No, and well, they're splitting across the map. They're trying to push out these side lanes. I think Gunner's about to just mop up the mid lane, but yeah, very odd game. Think it comes back to the draft. Think it comes back to, well, they've got this incredibly strong opener. They push for the Vitali Broodmother. In doing so, I think they almost say that we need to win from ahead or we're just not going to win at all. And well, this is the game they almost need to be satisfied with. And even though you do have this illusion carry as the server
Whoa,
flags
yeah.
just a little bit there, but not enough for the players to care because, well, you know, this game does feel almost spelt out for, especially because once you get on this building, well, I think this is just mega creeps. I don't think Hokori can really do anything at this point. Gunner might lose both bears, but yeah, no one's coming back. I think Hokori has pretty much just given up at this point. I think they know their mistake as well. They could just be talking about the next game for all I know, but if Four Zoomers are playing careful, they go back, they get Roche, they get the Aegis, and then probably see them mop up the rest of the Hokori buildings. But yeah, this is a really strange game for Hokori. And
Oh, Z-Freak.
Oh,
What a
the setup.
play. They're just going to go in for it. Static down. There's going to be the back in as well. Yuma just doesn't have any way out of this. He will fall. Gardic dead as well. Neither hero has buyback, and there's your GG. Hokori just get run out of the building here in game 2 as Four Zoomers tie it up at 1 apiece.
Yeah, and I think really just it comes back to the oddity in their draft where they don't have that same active hero. I think for Zoomers, just by virtue of pushing in their lanes, were finding plays with Costabilia, and that was enough for them. But 29-4, I don't even feel like they gave it a shot in that game. And I mean, Analog was certainly getting picked off. He was certainly getting played up on and at a cost of maybe Moo's farm a little bit, but that's where Moo gets to recover. If he goes for Boots of Travel, he feels so good. Gunner never really gets shut down. The LD maintains its, I think, 100% win rate in the tournament for Zoomers. And I think Hokori, they had a really good opener. Swinging back for the less active heroes really just put Analog in a tough position here. We didn't get to see him on an active mid laner. We didn't get to see Vitaly on an active off laner. And I think that's where the trap that so many of these teams are falling into is when they open up with the Weaver alongside this Timbersaw. Well, who's your stun? Who's going to make these plays? If Gardex put out an Ogre, Hokori was just at an all-time low for their activity. They just simply weren't even playing the game this time around. And I think really coming into the next draft, need to see a big shift. Maybe not a huge shift, as we've seen what happens when Hokori go for that play. But
Right.
I think that's also where just need to find a little bit more balance in their draft. I don't even think Four Zoomers were necessarily the most balanced. You saw 3 hard farmers on their team, and I think in Hokori taking that draw, they just ended up running out of enough tools to deal with Four Zoomers.
Yeah, if you're Hokori, we talked about this a lot with some of these teams. They try to basically bait their opponent into attempting to counter draft more than building to their own strength, and I think Hokori fell into that trap. They take that Vitaly Broodmother, and that looks great, but if the Broodmother doesn't roll her lane, now we have a Timbersaw mid who isn't going to be able to make plays, and you're ending up in a situation where you have 2 heroes who aren't maneuvering, and your third hero was Yuma on a Naga Siren. You're not moving. You are farming until the Naga is ready to go. So I think their plan really just kind of backfires on them. We had some iffy songs from Yuma as well once or twice. I don't really think that better songs would have turned things around, but it really was the only hope that they had, and see the results. They just get absolutely smashed in the second game.
Yeah, not a pretty game for Hokori at all. Very pretty game for Four Zoomers. Look at all their KDAs. Each of them only died once, except for Z-Freak, who is perfect, because Z-Freak and his Rubik are perfect. But that's where I can fanboy a little bit. But now, coming into game 3, I think we'll see if we maybe get the reach on the LD ban, and in doing so, we perhaps see a broken hero sneak through like the Death Prophet or the Tiny.
That's the joy of the best of 3. You get that sort of chess not checkers mentality that, to be honest, is a little bit missing in best of 1 or even best of 2. So we'll see what adjustments get made by the Hokori side. They definitely need it. Meanwhile, for Four Zoomers, more of the same may very well get them moving on to the next round of the playoffs. We shall see. In the meantime, though, we're going to be stepping away for a little bit, about 5 to 10 minutes out from the start of that third and final game. So stick around. Be back for the start of the Game 3 draft.